I have an interesting job today that anybody that's in the drywall business does occasionally run into this. It's a little room off the house that they're going to use for a music room. Anyways, the homeowner has hung his own drywall and it started taping. I can see that a couple things I might point out. They've already started sanding. Like this seam right here has got probably a couple of coats on it. They already started sanding it, but it's obviously never going to be good enough the way it is to paint. It's just going to flash right through. And they have a couple butted seams. There's a butted seam right here, then one along the ceiling, which isn't a big deal. But I can fix it. It's not something that I can't fix. But I just thought I would show something interesting. This happens to a lot of people that do their own taping. Here's a seam on this ceiling, and it's got paper tape on it, but you can see that it's loose. It's all puckered, and it's actually quite loose. See, what's happened is there wasn't enough joint compound put behind it. Like if I peel it off right here, let's see what happens. I just peel it off. And there was joint compound behind it. It's not good, and that's really kind of the only bad spot in here. Besides, it just needs a little tender, loving care on each seam. So I'm going to fix this room up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to explain why I think this tape came loose, and then I'm going to actually pretend there's a seam right through here and tape it and show you how I embed tape on a seam and what I would do wrong if I was going to try to create loose tape. But anyways, I was talking to the homeowner and he said he used some old joint compound that was over thinned. So having the compound too thin does actually ruin it a little bit. In other words, it's not going to have as much ability to adhere and hold the tape in place. It's going to lose some strength as well. So that could be part of the problem. Well, because I only see it in this one area, I'm thinking he probably just didn't have enough compound behind, or maybe to push it in quite tight enough. So I'm going to remove the loose tape. And I can actually see there is compound behind it, so I'm not sure what happened. I think we're probably going to blame it on the compound. So, lesson learned, don't use really old joint compound. It does have a shelf life and you can overthin it. So I'm just cleaning this up and I'm going to embed some new tape over the top of it. So I'm just taking some all-purpose compound and I'm just going to put it right over that seam. Now I did put quite a bit on there. It's not a light coat because I want to make sure I have plenty behind my tape. So I'm just going to center the tape right over that seam. Now I'm going to push it in nice and tight. I'm confident that that's not going to have any problems. I'm not going to have to worry about it popping loose or any dry spots or any air bubbles behind it because it's embedded in a nice uniform layer of joint compound. What I'm going to do just below this seam is I'm going to pretend there are a couple more seams and just go through how I embed the tape on a seam. So I have the joint compound and you can see it's not really thin, but it is a little thinner than it generally is when you just open a bucket. So I have thinned it down a little bit with water. So pretend I have a seam right here. I'm putting on the compound. And I've got it on there pretty heavy. And I'm going to do a seam right below it, and I'm going to do a kind of a lousy job. In other words, I'm not putting that much compound on the drywall. I'm going to bed paper tape in each one of these seams. I'm going to bed it nice and tight into that joint compound. Now when you embed paper tape, you do need a good taping knife, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on it because I'm forcing the compound out from behind the tape. The excess compound has to come out around the edges of the tape. And I am putting a lot of pressure on it to get it nice and tight. So that's why I wasn't afraid to put plenty of compound on, that I did thin a little bit, and when I embed it, I'm putting a lot of pressure so I'm not worried about leaving too much compound behind the tape. Like this seam right here, I just did not put enough compound behind it. And you know, it doesn't look too bad. It's actually stuck pretty well, but I definitely have some air bubbles. I definitely have areas that are just don't have any compound behind it. So if I were to try to coat over that, let's just kind of pretend this is the next day, that's when it really gets highlighted. I can see all those little air bubbles and all the loose tape very clearly right now. But on this upper seam, where I have plenty of compound on, it is not a worry at all. I put the compound on, and I'm taking it right off. And you can see, nice and tight and smooth. This lower one, where I did not have enough compound, you can see it's really bad.